Rick, we have so much to talk about. This is a real turning point that we've hit in your book, The Tiger Whisker. But before we get to the chapter, I've got to say, hooray, congratulations, bravo. You hit your second week on the radio with your radio show on KOMC there in Branson. And I got to tell you, you're sounding more and more like a radio jock. You're infringing on my territory there.
It wasn't that I wasn't more prepared. I had some sleep.
Well,
actually, before I was on the air.
That
because I haven't
good.
been sleeping well the moment that I took on the reins of actually being on the air. It's been an overwhelming experience for me, and a deep appreciation for those that are on the air and those that prepare daily for on air, actually just doing anything that you have to do regarding broadcast. Mm-hmm. So it's been overwhelming for me. It's new. Luckily, I'm only doing one day a week, so I get to prepare. But you know what? It's also a bit of a frustration. When I go to the show and I prepare for my show, the best thing to do is prepare all the way up until the moment that you're performing,
right? And
then go out on stage and then pull it off. Sometimes if we come in early, if we're having to do a rehearsal, something to that effect, and we sit around for a bit before we do the show, it's horrible.
I get that.
The lag is just terrible. And so when I only have one show a week on Saturdays between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m., that's a long time to go in preparation for that one show. And sometimes it's just too long. And I'll say to myself, well, I'll prepare tomorrow. It's not that I'm trying to push it to the side. It's just that there's so much time where I am preparing and then waiting, and then I finally get on the air, and I'm just, it's over the top for me. It's just too much to remember, and too much time on my hands to think about it before I do it. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, it makes total sense. I have a friend who does 2 nights on the air here in Los Angeles, and he will get done, and the day after his second night of the week, he starts preparing for the next week already.
Yes.
And 2 things happen. By the time he actually hits his first of the 2 nights that week, he has a mountain of stuff, too much stuff to even get through. And some of it in his mind is old and stale, so he tosses it. So he literally is taking like the first 3 days of prep and throwing it immediately out the window without ever having used it. And I said, why don't you just wait until the night before and then do your prep? I do my prep the day of.
Well, lucky you.
Well, it just,
bravo.
It just works better.
To someone who can do that.
Well, I couldn't do that when I started, so there's that.
I'm going to tell you flat out also, sometimes people say, Rick, you negotiate well on the phone, you communicate when you give calls to people. I said, because I write it all down. It's in front of me on a piece of paper, every point that I want to make, everything that I want to say, so that if there's any conflict or challenges, I can turn to it's not off the cuff.
Right.
I don't want to say that it's just all planned out and scripted, but that's almost how I have to run my life, by scripting. Off the cuff sometimes just doesn't work very well.
No, it doesn't. You
including the radio.
Yeah, you forget stuff. You make mistakes. I write bullet points down when I make conversations, when I have conversations with people, clients and stuff. Not, fun conversations, no. But when I work with clients for podcasts, or, when I'm having a business meeting with somebody, from the station, I'll make bullet points so I know what I'm doing. That's just doing it smart. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But
I don't think it's wrong. I think that there's more people who should.
Oh, gosh, yes. I think everybody should.
Everybody should.
Everybody should.
Get on the phone and be prepared
yes.
to converse.
Yes. And we'd get a lot more done more succinctly, and it would be fine. But with radio, you're doing some very top of mind stories. I love the stories you have on.
Thank you.
But if you collect those up for an entire week, well, they're going to be kind of old by then. So, it's kind of a cumulative thing throughout the week. As you find a really cool story, throw it in, and then really bear down the last couple of days and start pulling it all together.
Yes.
But things I noticed on week 2 were you seem to be having one heck of a lot more fun.
It's all an illusion.
Well, you're good an illusionist, aren't you?
No, I was having more fun. Again, I think more of it just had to be because it's with anything. In fact, I was talking to Clay Cooper. He's one of the big shows also out here in Branson. And I was walking literally past his show, which is 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the mornings on Saturday. And I walked past and chatted with him briefly. And I said, it's kind of like when we put something new in our show. We work so hard to create something new and we put it in the show. I just put a new vanishing motorcycle in the production. And everybody's so worried that first day, right? And we just work so hard. And the moment that you put it in and it's done, and it's working is the moment you can just almost just put it out of your mind and it just works.
Right.
And that's kind of what it was with the radio. It's not that the preparation is not there. It's that once the first week was done, at least I now know the system.
Yeah.
I know what I need to do and it's a little bit more comfortable and you can kind of move on from there. So I'll get better with time.
Well, I know you will. One of the first things I tell students about that very first show, just get through it and still be breathing. And now we call that a success. Okay. That's all we want. Just you're still breathing. You're still upright. Great. Now we move on. But every week it's going to get better and better. And you're going to find yourself doing less prep, really, because you're just going to get on there and talk and have a great time. You sounded like you were having a blast on show 2. I was having fun listening, and show 3 coming up this week.
Well, you were a big part of show 2, so thank you. Kudos to you for also going online and making me look good to the station. I mean, here we are in Branson, Missouri, and we've got a national radio personality from Hollywood.
Also known as your old friend Tammy. Other than that, for the entire radio community, I will say thank you for recognizing how hard radio really is. Because it is a lot harder than it looks. But again, just like with what you do on stage there in Branson, what we do on radio is our version of smoke and mirrors, Rick. It really is. Radio is magic unto itself. No, it is. Whatever I can convince you of through audio is real.
Well,
it's magic.
We were just talking before the podcast that what goes on in the studio is not heard over the radio.
No. It
can be chaotic and push this, do this, and then all of a sudden, hey, we're going to chat for just a few moments. All right, go to some music, will you?
It all just comes together. Yeah. So it's a magic unto itself. It really is. It's theater of the mind. If you think back to the radio dramas of the 1930s and 40s with all of their Foley, and they could just drag you into this world that you really believed you were in. So it's just, you know what? I look at it as just an extension of your magic. Now you're into audio magic. It's just an extension. And go in there and have fun.
I'm pleased,
and you should be.
I do hope that that we continue with a great directive into the future on this. I really am just having a blast. Thank you again for asking. And I'm Rick Thomas. I'm on my 100.1 KOMC, the 80s, 90s, and today. Enjoy and listen every Saturday, 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. That's for now. I already told them on the air. I said, I'm doing 1 day a week. And if the management's listening,
oh my gosh, you opted for 2?
Feel free to ask me for maybe a second day.
Oh my, look at that. Okay.
Oh, maybe even a third. We'll see how it goes.
He's taken over. Well, if you're not in Branson, if you cannot pick up KOMC on the air, you can go to KOMC.com and you can pick it up on the stream and listen live. So it doesn't matter where you are. If you are near a computer or your cell phone, you can listen to the show 10 to 1, that's Central Time on Saturday mornings. So it's a blast. Yeah,
it's good. My mother, that's how my mother listens.
Oh, is she listening here in Long Beach?
Yeah, she's up in Utah now. She made a move from Long Beach to Utah, but she's out there. She's listening and proud of her son, of course, but it's funny because she's the one who gives me a call and after says, I will tell you this is funny. So this is so mom.
Okay.
Well, and now I've got to remember, I'm the 80s, 90s, and today.
Right.
And I get to choose my own music.
Yes, I know.
And she
You
goes,
do. Quit loading.
and she is, my mother is extremely old-fashioned.
Okay.
And she said to me on the last one, you know, Rick, I love listening to you. I just don't like your choice in music.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you know what? Tell your mom I wish you guys were rolling it back to the 60s and 70s. So I'm right there with her. So
she goes, I don't understand. I just don't. I'm like laughing. I go, Mom, I have to have an audience. I'll lose my audience if I don't play this music.
It's probably that Taylor Swift song that's getting her.
Yeah, that right up on the front side of things.
That's what's getting her. Oh, my God. Someday I hope to meet your mom. She sounds like just a kid. She really does. She really does.
I'm protective of her children, as always.
Yeah,
they should be.
Well, she did a pretty good job with all you guys, in my opinion. So, all right, let's go to chapter 43 because this is a hard chapter. This is a difficult chapter for, I think, everybody. You, me, everybody. It's chapter 43. It's called The Shutdown, and I think we probably only have to say that, and a good number of our people listening are going to go, I know what they're going to talk about.
Well, only because we don't want to talk about it anymore.
Right. I'm tired of it too. Yeah.
Yes. So I hope that as you listen to this podcast, do not shut it off just because it has to do with the shutdown, COVID, and all that whole scenario.
Yeah.
I want people to realize this entire podcast is more so about doing everything you can to accomplish your goals.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you've given, no matter how much money you must have spent, and time and effort and blood and sweat and tears, whatever it may be, that you realize that there's other outside forces that are going to cause havoc in your life and set you back beyond what you expected. And I have had that happen when I was in Las Vegas, and the theater that I was supposed to be in was part of a hotel that was never built. And no matter how good my show was and how successful I was, everything around me imploded. And my appreciation for COVID, and you can say, Rick, how could you even say there's an appreciation? Tammy, as you know, we lost friends.
Oh, gosh, yes.
We lost jobs. There are people who still have not recovered from it. And I'm fully aware of that. I fully understand. But my appreciation was that everybody went through it.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Okay, and you might say, well, that's not good. I said, it is. I said, we can only enjoy our lives and the good times if we experience bad times as well. You have no way of differentiating between good and bad if you've not experienced bad.
It's true. It's
right.
True. It gives perspective.
And it's a sad thing in this world that we have to go through that and be tossed to and fro and just experience a life of so many challenges.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it tells you, or at least lets you know, wow, at this particular moment in my life, I have great joy. Because what I just went through was horrid.
Oh, in this case, totally unfathomable. Who would have ever thought? Because here we are, we go into 2020, brand new year. I know I had some amazing things going on. You had amazing things going on. And all of a sudden, we get slammed in March. I mean, out of the blue. I don't know how you learned about it, but I'll tell you, I took a lunch break on campus, and I came back to my office, and there's this urgent email: dismiss your students now, tell them classes are canceled through the rest of the week, and to stand by for info. And it wasn't like a suggestion. And I told the kids, I said, guys, there's a situation, and it involves this thing we've been talking about called COVID. I need you guys to pack up, go home, forget about school for the rest of the week, and we will talk next week. Move.
Yeah.
And it was just like that. The world went, like one of those crazy movie U-turns, right, with the screeching brakes and all. And we didn't know what we were doing. So yeah, here we were going along, just clicking along until boom, we weren't.
There are times in our lives that, of course, were not as impactful as this. I remember where I was when we had the shuttle disaster.
Oh yeah, I remember where I
Remember,
was
everybody
too.
had everybody. In fact, before the COVID thing, it was a conversation. Well, where were you? What
Yes.
happened to you?
Yeah.
And I think that that's where the stories are. And when I share my story about the shutdown, I want people to realize that this is just commentary on what happened to Rick Thomas.
Mhm.
And in no way or form, what happened to me was any worse than what happened to everybody,
Oh, no,
because
no.
we all have a story,
Uh-huh.
and everybody knows where they were and what has
Uh-huh.
happened to their lives because of it.
Yep.
So when we talk about this chapter, and I wrote this book shortly thereafter, so it was easier to write.
Uh-huh.
But now chatting about it in a podcast makes me feel like I am saying, "Oh, woe is me,"
Oh no.
in front of everybody, and I don't want you
No,
to
no,
think
no.
that.
No.
I remind you again, no matter who you are, no matter where you were, whatever you were doing, the life that you were leading, the goals that you were trying to pursue, everything stopped in your life, and it
did.
just imploded. And I think
Yeah.
that that's what really needs to be remembered. And as I share this with you, just think about what happened to you as well.
Mhm.
And it just that's just a remembrance, and it gives us a chance to kind of regurgitate the challenges we all faced.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I had some great things going on that year. So your early 2020, what was on your agenda?
I had a tour,
Uh-huh.
a U.S. tour that we were preparing for, and in fact, we were already on the road. You can imagine.
wow.
Now, remember, I drive my own semi truck,
Yes, you
so
do.
I'm driving this 53-foot semi, and I love it. I mean, it's
I
a
know
great
you
joy
do.
to me. And then I've got my cast and crew in a bus, and they're traveling opposite me. We're all traveling together
Mhm.
from Branson to Colorado.
Okay.
And we are traveling. It took us about 3 days
Wow.
with our travels to get across the country.
Wow.
And I was booked into probably 18 theaters
Oh wow.
that we were preparing to perform at. And literally, that was our first performance out there in Colorado. So I think it's preparation. We prepare for a couple months before we go out on tour. You have to get all the illusions in order. You have to make sure everybody knows their bits, costumes, packing. It's nonstop in preparation. Finally, once you get on the road, you can take a deep breath. Hey, we're heading out to our first venue.
Right.
And when we get to the venue, that very day, I get off the truck, and the director of the venue says, "I am so sorry, Rick. Your shows have been canceled."
Oh my goodness. So it was that very, very day you pull up. So the day I was dismissing my students is the day you pull up
Right.
to the theater.
Right. And
Holy cow.
we didn't know what was going on. And I can tell you now, in looking hindsight 2020, you know that Colorado was really on the front side of this as well. They were one of the first states that was really pushing to shut down the country, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they did. They
Yeah, they
shut
did.
my show down.
Oh my
Now,
gosh.
remember, I'm standing with the director, and I'm probably 50 yards away from the rest of the cast and crew who are just getting out of the bus. And I'm dealing with it. I'm taking a deep breath, and all of a sudden my head is, okay, what do I need to cover
Yeah.
this loss? And this at first was just my one show.
One show. Right.
Right. And because you're thinking, okay, well, let's all figure out life and then continue on next week and see if we can just pick up where we left off.
Well, we all thought this was like a week, maybe
Yeah.
2, and then it just snowballed. But yeah, we all thought it was just a very temporary thing. That's how it was originally contexted to all of us, including those of us in the media. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so I went over to my cast and told them at that point, well, we've driven 3 days across the country. Our show is canceled.
Wow.
And I said to the director, I said, can we at least stay in the hotel that's set up for us? And then we will turn around and go back the next day. Within 1 hour of that discussion with that director, my agency gave me a call and said, all of your shows are being canceled. across the country. This has now spread. And we remember we were on the road. We weren't really listening to the news.
Yeah.
So we were for 3 days, this started to fester. And by the time we hit the ground, we're like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. Like
What's
you came
going on
into
in
the
the
movie
country?
a little late. Yeah.
And right. And so I then realized that next morning I sat there with my cast at breakfast and told them the tour is over. The next 3 months of your life are gone. So we got on the bus and the truck and started driving back to Branson. And at that point, it was, to me, fascinating and overwhelming to literally see the country shut down.
I know.
As we traveled across the country, I can't say I had the joy, but I had the experience of watching everything fall apart.
Yeah.
So fast. And on our way back to Branson, I gave a call out to the Chamber of Commerce. And I said, I'm coming back to Branson and I am closing my doors. I'm shuttering my doors in my theater in Branson. And we don't know when we're going to reopen. Now, we had people saying, Rick, don't do that. We understand what's going on across the country. We know, and we've heard that Disney is closing its doors. We heard that cruise ships are ceasing their sailing dates. We heard this, we heard that, we heard Las Vegas, and they said, but look, because we're such a small place, we're in Branson, and everybody's kind of stuck to being just kind of local, we're going to prosper. I think everybody's going to come to Branson. And I told the chamber literally within I said, you don't understand. I'm watching this country shut down as I'm driving home. You're not seeing it. You want to live in this little bubble of yours? I am telling you. And I was the first theater to shut my doors in Branson during COVID. And people were just, they were appalled. They were like, you can't do this. You can't. And I know that everybody tried to survive and stay alive as much as they could. But within 1 week, everything was closed.
Well, it was inconceivable. It was literally like, I remember driving in those first few days when it was all shutting down. And good Lord, Rick, I'm in LA and all of a sudden the freeways are passable at 100 miles an hour if you want. It was like something out of a Twilight Zone movie. And I think the thing that I most recall was how quiet it was.
Yeah.
It was so quiet. It's like there's that movie out right now where you can't make any noise or the aliens will hear you. And so people are tiptoeing around. I can't think of what it's called, The Quiet Ones or something like that. It was like that. I remember making myself stay on the sidelines so much and just contemplate how quiet it was. How there was no and I swear to God, you just kept waiting for Rod Serling to come in with one of his monologues because it was like this is unreal. This can't be happening. I think that's what was happening there in Branson. Nobody could fathom this because it's still to me unfathomable when I look back on it. Really,
yeah.
I mean, how did it happen? Who would have thought? Oh my gosh, what are your cast members saying? Because you've got a whole busload of young men and women. And what are they saying to you? I'm so curious when you're driving back and they're seeing the same things you're seeing. What were their thoughts?
Well, a lot of the conversation probably happened without me there. They were driving in the bus and I'm in the truck. Thank goodness. But there were a lot of tears. And I think that's with everybody across the country. In our scenario, they'd put everything they had into it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back even a few more years. Do you know it's been 9 years since Michael Jackson passed on?
I do know that.
Okay.
And I know exactly where I was when I heard it too.
What I remember most about the special that they created about his show was not so much us losing Michael, but to see the other artists who had put in so much time, effort, money, the management,
dancers,
advertising, tours, same thing.
Yeah.
And 9 years ago, they had their own miniature COVID hit.
They did.
And you had all of these artists sitting around realizing that this one event stopped all of their own personal dreams from coming true.
It's true. Yeah.
And that's what I see from it.
Good analogy.
And that's what I see with this scenario as well. But this time, as I put it, I'm glad that everybody had to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just one little bubble, because with the Michael Jackson situation, I know people watched it and they're like, wow, that's a horrible scenario, but they all went on with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
I was impacted because as an entertainer, I thought, oh, those poor people.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Doing everything that
Yeah.
they possibly have could.
Yeah.
And some of them going, this is the chance of my lifetime. This is going to be the greatest thing in my life. And it's gone.
The dream, touring with Michael Jackson. Oh, a pinnacle for some of them. Yeah.
And not to kind of go in a different direction, but I do want to just share kind of a little bit about the joy of touring, since it kind of was taken away from us.
Mm-hmm.
And I love performing at theaters across the country. It makes me feel alive. People say, why don't you just enjoy it? Because in Las Vegas, I was there for 15 years and it became a 9-to-5 job. But when we go out on the road, every new theater is a new experience.
Oh, yes.
And I know that the hardest work I've ever done in my life is literally on the road, on tours. When we go into a theater, we build out the show, we light the show, and we make sure the cast are fed. That's critical.
That's very critical.
You
yes,
must
indeed.
make sure that everybody is fed and watered well.
Good food. Gotta be good.
and you're okay. And it's the greatest thing after, with that experience, to have finished the show, pack up everything, and the last thing I do is walk around the stage, an empty, quiet stage, and look back on it and go, I cannot believe what we just did.
Oh, indeed.
The monumental event that we presented. And now we get back in our vehicles and we go on to the next venue.
Well, one of the things,
it's a tremendous accomplishment.
One of the things I envy with you is you see all of these different theaters, these amazing, some of them very historic or some very bizarre theaters. When I was touring with Ohio Express, one of the things that I enjoyed so much is when we'd get to a new theater and myself and the guitar player would always go exploring. We would explore the theater. Yes. And just climbing stairs, maybe we weren't supposed to climb, opening doors, and maybe we should not have opened, but exploring. And I got to tell you, we were at the Taft Theater in Cincinnati, and we had a lot of time. That's a very historic theater. It goes back and back and back. And we had some extra time. And so he and I went exploring, and we found the wall. And you know what I'm talking about. There's a wall in every theater that everybody is signed, right? Most people don't know that exists backstage, but it does. We found it. And, oh, my, Rick, the names on that wall, the Beatles. We yelled for the whole band to come up, and we're all standing there in front of this wall looking at John, Paul, George, and Ringo, their signatures, and realized we're standing exactly where they stood, where they signed.
Well, that's not just that moment where they signed it's the same thing, but standing on the stage. And that's the joy I've always felt touring.
Yes.
Is literally you're like, do you have any idea the history that came before you? Yes.
That to me has been one of the things with someone like you who tours a lot, because I only got to do that for a short time with Ohio Express, but that was always one of my highlights. And I know you were looking at a summer of just going to amazing theaters, and nobody even thinks that would be one of the coolest things, but it totally is one of the coolest things about touring. So, I can only imagine what you were looking forward to that summer. Wow. Oh my goodness!
But you know what? We are touring again, and we have shows. In fact, I'm going to be going out to Europe. We're performing in England next year.
Goodness!
Woo. And hopefully returning back to Australia. And at the same time, I've got like 20 theaters across the United States that will be performing. So it's all good. But I'm going to tell you this as well. For those of you saying, wow, this is all amazing, Rick Thomas is telling us, it is the hardest work I've ever done in my entire existence.
Oh, it's tough. Yeah.
And getting out on the road. And also with our current financial scenario that we're all living in, it is extremely expensive to tour.
Oh, yeah.
It is over the top. The buses, the food, the hotels. I'm going to tell you now, for those thinking that that's just the perfect scenario, we are barely surviving the challenges of being out on the road as well. And you've got to do a few shows to even make it worth it.
Right.
You can't go out there and just do a few. It's just too much money.
Right.
It's just cost too much to get everything out on the road and get it started. You've got to have quite a few lined up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good.
It
gives us a chance to have a breather and get away from our daily performances that we present every night at the theater, in the same theater over and over. And when we get out on the road, it is a pleasure to watch the cast and crew so thrilled to be out on the road. And then after we're out there performing for 3 or 4 weeks, to see the same individuals wishing, hoping, and praying that they would return back home and perform in their own theater and sleep in their own beds.
Bed.
Yeah. And it happens every year. It's like a cycle. We got to get out there and whatever it is. And then the next thing you realize is, oh man, I guess home's not as bad as what I thought it was. So there is a saying that I'm going to tell everybody as well, as you still follow your dreams. Be careful what you wish for.
Oh, boy, that one rings true so very often. And before we go further in the chapter, I want to point out, because I always have the chapter up on the computer when we're talking. And just another reason why I encourage everybody to get the book, get the Tiger Whisker, order it. The link is in our show notes, because you will see one of the cutest pictures. I know you know the one I'm talking about.
Yes, I just turned to it now.
It's in the truck. It's in the cab of the truck. And it is on that very day, that very fateful day when everything shut down. But you have got the cutest darn picture of Preston sitting up on the dashboard of the truck. You're stopped, it looks like, at a gas station. And there he is. How old is he there? What do you think?
Good question. You calculate it. I'm a guy. I don't know dates.
I'm looking at him. I'm
like
saying
2.
Okay, yeah, he looks like a toddler. He totally knows what's going on. And
he loved the truck. And he still loves the truck. His favorite thing is to drive in the truck with Dad.
He's adorable.
He's 6 years old now. So
I was just going to ask, how old is he now? Preston is your littlest son. He's been part of the show, not on stage, but part of the show since the get-go. And this is just one of the amazing pictures that you're going to find in the book, The Tiger Whisker. Rick, you take a lot of pictures, or Tara takes a lot of pictures. Somebody's taking pictures of you guys all the time. And these pictures are just super, and they just illustrate the story. But this one just, he's adorable now, but gosh, was he a cute little guy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, he's
I
super.
appreciate the picture as well. You know, you have no idea when you take the photo how much it's going to mean.
Yeah.
Sometimes I still don't understand why people take photos of their food that they eat. But that's another story.
Lost on that one. Forget about it. I think I've done that twice, and it's been at like big dinners where the food was just like an artistic piece.
Exquisite,
yeah.
right.
And I took it. But if I've just gone to, I'm not going to name any fast food restaurant in particular, but I got my burger, fries, and shake laid out. I just don't see a reason to document that, but that's just me.
Right.
That's just me. So, all right. So here, my goodness, what happens during the closure for you? You get back to Branson, and I think all of us, after the shock wore off of, okay, what do we do now? Or this is happening. Then comes the what do we do now kind of feeling.
As an entertainer, I realized at that point how worthless we are to the rest of the world during a pandemic.
Jeez,
now I say it in a very positive way. I mean, it kind of keeps you grounded, and you realize that you aren't part of the important needs that everybody needs to deal with to survive. You're there to entertain people in good times and even bad. I mean, there are often times when people are in bad scenarios that they need to be uplifted. And I think that's where an entertainer comes in and makes their day better than it is. But we were on the back burner. We were not needed during the COVID, the challenges that we all faced. So what did everybody do? You did it. I did it. We all did it. We all went online and Zoomed our lives.
Yeah.
We went ballistic. I created a streaming video of my show and I began streaming it across the world and presented events where people could all go online and watch this stream of the show and still try to keep the show viable. it I think it was wonderful. It was wonderful to have the stream. I think it was great accomplishment. But in reality, I think today now people are absolutely sick and tired of being on a Zoom call.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
We all do
good.
it still,
Yeah.
but COVID, like it was like been there, done that. And the last thing you wanted to do is once we started escaping from our little area that we had to survive in, the last thing we wanted to do was get online and talk to somebody online any further. And so the streaming scenario didn't last very long, but it was positive for me. It wasn't earth shattering as far as a financial success. It was just something to do
Yeah.
and keep our minds working during that challenging season.
It was interesting in that people had to get resourceful. In my industry, we had to keep going because we were the info folks. We couldn't go in studios either. And, they found ways very quickly. I've got to say, I've never seen engineers move so fast in my life. They moved very quickly to find ways for us to go online from home, which nobody had ever thought could be done, should be done, would be done. You had TV anchors doing the news from their living rooms.
Yes.
Which was amazing. Yeah. And in a lot of cases, some of those things are still going on because
nobody wants to go back to work.
Well,
that's part of it.
It's interesting how out of something so terrible, because there's no other word for what happened, but so many innovations came out because now stations can have talent from other markets that maybe they never could have attracted that talent to physically move to their market because maybe it's a smaller market, maybe it's not the most desirable city on the universe for somebody. But now they can have that talent on their air by kind of a remote kind of thing. I think so much innovation came out of it. And that's, I think, where you've got to applaud humans. And, that show that you're talking about that you did, that's how you and I reconnected.
Was it?
It was.
There's another man moment.
Yeah.
We're like, what?
Well, that's
what?
True.
When?
That's true. Well, I saw something about that on social media that you were going to do it. And you just happened to, and I appreciate this so much. Thank you for doing this. You decided to put it on my birthday. And so having nowhere to go on my birthday because of the situation, I invited my creative partner who I was working on a podcast with. We had those little, what they call social bubbles. Remember? Little groups of people that, you only associate with that little group, so you could kind of interact physically. Yeah. Right. Well, he and I were in one of the little social bubbles, and his wife, he came over, and we had a little birthday cake sort of thing here in the studio, and we watched your show. And I started on the chat. I started talking to Tara.
Oh,
and
wow.
She remembered me from Vegas, and we started having a little chat, and that's how this whole thing really started to go. So it's so interesting of the innovations, out of something terrible, some really interesting innovations, some interesting connections, if you will, kind of popped up that were a small percentage saving grace of some of this insanity. It really was. You talked about, Rick, the finances just, of touring and the finances of surviving during COVID, because that's certainly a lot of people lost work. You lost work. People were losing things left, right, and center. Money was coming from the government to help, which I thought was an amazing thing. I never thought I'd see that.
Right.
That was like, huh? Yes. Really? You're giving money away? Oh my gosh, really? You understand we're hurting? Wow. Who are you? But it just kind of also underscores the need to plan better for our finances, our financial futures, because we certainly weren't in a position.
Yeah.
Because again,
and that's what happened during COVID for me.
Yeah.
I turned to looking at our finances and realizing that there was no income and it just ceased to exist. And where I sat in my world and how I was going to protect my family.
Yeah.
And during COVID is where I was educated as to diversifying my finances and making it better for myself by not just investing in the stock market, not just putting everything in the bank,
Mm-hmm.
but finding ways to put it in another scenario. And as you know, it was precious metals.
Right.
They're the only commodity that we have that doesn't lose its value. Now, there are plenty of ways to make amazing money. You can go into the markets, you can go into real estate, and there are winners and losers in all of those scenarios. And I know that you'll see people who say this is what you can do and this is what you can make and this is the way to go. And in so many cases, investing, let's just say in real estate, is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, there are people that will lose at times
Oh, yeah.
on
Yeah.
purchasing real estate.
Uh-huh.
And nobody wants to talk about the negatives. They always want to talk about, oh, how great this is and how amazing this is and how much money you're going to make.
But it's cyclical. It's very cyclical. Yeah.
And so that being the case, the one thing that holds its worth, it's kind of your insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
Gold is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and silver is what it is. And no matter what our economy does, you're still going to be able to buy the same thing in gold and silver that you bought 20 years ago. Does that help you a little bit more?
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It does. It does. So this is really not that complicated, although it might feel like it when you first look at it. But Rick's got it all spelled out for you. You go to mansionofdreams.net/wealth. Little form to fill out right there on the site. Goes directly to Rick. No one else. Goes directly to Rick. And he will give you a phone call. He'll call you up and explain this to you. And, see if it's right. It's really that simple, right?
Yeah, it's simple. When I get on the phone to call you, be prepared that when you do put your name in, it might be a few days.
Well, yeah.
Oh my goodness! Now that I'm on the air, having to prepare my show,
yes.
Life gets in the way for all of us, and I am so pleased that I can offer my information to others. First and foremost, if you're not hearing from me directly immediately, one is just take the opportunity to start looking up ways of buying gold and silver. You can see it on television. The commercials are there.
Yeah.
They're all over the place. And main thing is just to make sure that you're not being ripped off. Some people are worried, well, how do I know if it's being, there are plenty of companies online that you can literally buy gold and silver from that are all reputable. So many of them that you can literally, all you're doing is buying it at market rate and they send it to you and you're holding on to a real asset. I know it's tough to take your money, your hard-earned money, and put it into something like that. But once you do, in my opinion, and what I've experienced, is you can't stop. It's just something that all of a sudden you truly start to enjoy. And you know what it is? It's like you're sitting on a pile of gold. You see these people in the past where they have all this money and all they do is sit there and count their gold.
Yep, they got all stacked all about them.
They're all stacked up. Well, I don't have a big stack, but the point is you sit there and you're like, oh, I'm counting this and I'm counting that. Very funny because it is kind of true.
Well, you can start your own little tiny stack and work from there. And just go to mansionofdreams.net/wealth and fill out the form. And as soon as Rick gets a break from his radio show, he will give you a call and explain the details. And, hey, maybe it's your thing. Maybe it's your new thing. Who knows?
Tammy, thank you. This is so appreciated. Again, your support and
my pleasure.
And just making sure that I'm trying to do my very best is appreciated. I again, this would not have happened without your efforts. And so I hope that as I continue to age, that I give those who need appreciation and kudos enough. So thank you for your efforts.
You are very, very welcome. Check out the show notes. There are links in there for the book. There's a link to the radio show on Saturday mornings, all kinds of good info, all in the show notes right there.
See you soon.